All right, so let's dive into something pretty interesting today.
Okay.
The Canadian government and AI in the workplace.
Hmm.
So we're not talking robots taking over,
Right.
but definitely a move towards AI.
Yeah.
Specifically, we're looking at this policy implementation notice from the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat, all about Microsoft Copilot for work.
Interesting.
And what really stood out to me is this date,
Oh, yeah.
February 1st, 2025.
So new.
Like, this is all very, very recent stuff.
It is. This really highlights the speed at which things are changing.
Right.
Yeah.
And what we have here is essentially a set of guidelines for Canadian government institutions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how can they use Copilot?
Right.
But with some very specific rules in place.
Absolutely.
And the fact that this is a policy implementation notice,
Yeah.
that tells us a lot about their approach, don't you think?
It does. It really shows that they're taking a very measured, deliberate approach.
Right.
It's not just like, oh, AI is
Oh,
here.
Betty go crazy.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's some real thought going into this.
Lots of thought.
So what jumps out at you?
Well, one thing that really stands out to me is this emphasis on using Copilot for unclassified information only.
Mm.
And I think that really underscores how sensitive they are being.
About security.
Yes. Security and privacy in this age of AI.
That's a great point.
It makes you think.
It does.
Like, what kind of security measures are in place?
Yeah. Is it just a matter of like, hey guys, don't put classified stuff in here?
Right, exactly.
Or is there something more to it?
Oh, it's definitely more than just a verbal warning.
Okay.
The policy very specifically requires the activation of enterprise data protection,
Okay.
which, as you know, is a whole set of technologies and policies
Right. Yeah.
that are meant to safeguard sensitive data.
Right.
And on top of that, everybody needs to use their official Government of Canada identities for authentication.
So it's like it's baked right in.
It's baked in, yeah.
Yeah.
These aren't just suggestions.
No.
They're mandatory steps
Right.
before anyone can even start using Copilot.
So they're really trying to minimize that risk from the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about trusting people to use it responsibly,
Right.
but about creating a system that is, by design, going to minimize that risk.
And just to be clear, this policy applies to any institution that's governed by the policy on service and digital,
That's right.
which is a lot.
It covers a lot of ground.
And then other institutions are actually encouraged to follow these guidelines as best practice.
Yeah, so the impact of this document could be pretty far-reaching.
It really could.
Yeah.
It's like they're creating this blueprint for how they envision AI being used in the future.
Yeah,
Not a complete takeover,
Right.
but definitely a sign of things to come.
absolutely.
And there's another detail that really stood out to me.
Okay.
This mention of a separate document,
Right.
a guide on the use of generative artificial intelligence that employees are encouraged to read.
Yeah.
So it's not just, here's the tool, use it.
Exactly.
It's, here's the tool, understand it, use it wisely.
Yeah, that's key.
I feel like they're really trying to get ahead of any potential issues before they even come up.
Yeah, I think so too.
Which brings me to something else.
Yeah.
It really caught my eye.
Oh, yeah.
The possibility of audits by the Treasury Board.
That's a big one.
It is.
The fact that they're building in that level of oversight.
Right, from the start.
From the start, yeah.
It shows how seriously they're taking this.
It does.
It's like, okay, this isn't just a free-for-all.
Right.
There will be accountability.
Absolutely, yeah.
It makes you wonder
It does.
what kind of criteria they'll be using for these audits. What will they be looking for?
Yeah.
What will success look like to them?
That's a really good question.
It is.
And unfortunately, this document doesn't really give us any specific details,
Oh, okay.
but I think it does suggest that they're thinking about, more than just the technical functionality. They're
Okay.
thinking about the broader impact of AI.
On, efficiency,
Efficiency. Yeah.
decision-making, even potentially the workforce itself.
Yeah, the whole landscape could change.
I'm really curious to see how this plays out.
Me too.
It feels like we're just seeing the very
The
beginning
daily stages.
of this huge shift
Yeah,
in how government work is done.
absolutely.
And this one document,
This policy, yeah.
this policy implementation notice, gives us such a clear view into that shift.
I think so too.
It really does.
And while this is all focused on the Canadian government,
Yeah.
these questions that it brings up,
Mm-hmm.
they're relevant everywhere.
They are.
As AI becomes more powerful, more accessible,
Right.
every government's going to have to grapple with these same issues.
Yeah.
How to balance the potential benefits with this need for responsible, ethical use.
Right.
How to make sure that AI is serving the public good.
Such huge questions.
Big questions.
And that's where I think things get even more interesting.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
Because this policy tells us what the Canadian government is planning to do,
Right.
but we've also got some early insights into what's actually happening
Oh, interesting.
on the ground.
Okay.
We've been able to gather some anecdotal evidence from government employees
Oh, wow.
who are already using Copilot in their daily work.
So they're already using it.
They are, yeah.
Fascinating.
It's early days, I mean, obviously.
Right.
But it gives us this glimpse into the real-world impact.
Yeah, the rubber hits the road.
Exactly.
I'm really curious to hear about this.
Perfect. Well, we're going to jump into that in part 2.
Okay, great.
But first, we've got to take a quick break.
Sounds good. So we've been talking about the guidelines and the policies around using Microsoft Copilot for work.
Right, the theory.
Exactly.
But, the real world is a whole other thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Putting it into practice, seeing how it actually works.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are people saying? Are Canadian government employees actually finding Copilot to be useful, or is it just a headache?
It's interesting. The feedback we've been getting is kind of a mixed bag.
Okay.
Some employees are finding it to be genuinely helpful.
Like what kind of tasks?
Well, things like drafting, routine documents.
Okay.
Summarizing really long reports.
Okay, that makes sense.
Even just brainstorming ideas.
Yeah, especially in government, there's so much paperwork.
Oh, tons.
If this can streamline things,
Exactly.
it seems like a win.
In terms of efficiency, yeah, for sure.
But you said mixed bag, so what's the downside?
Well, one thing that keeps coming up is accuracy.
Ah.
It seems like Copilot can sometimes make mistakes.
Well, I mean, it's early days.
It is, yeah.
It's not going to be perfect right out of the gate.
And I think the key here is not to blindly trust it.
Right.
It's about using it as a tool.
To support you.
Yeah, to augment your own judgment.
Not to replace it. Which brings us back to that guide.
Oh, the guide, yeah.
The guide on the use of generative artificial intelligence.
That's right.
It sounds like that could be really important in helping people understand how to use it.
I think so, too, because it really emphasizes, thinking critically.
Right.
Using it responsibly.
Yeah.
You need to be aware of potential biases.
Oh, for sure.
You have to double-check the output.
Right. Right.
Use your own judgment.
It's a tool.
It is a tool.
It's not the final word.
Exactly.
It feels like they're really trying to create this culture of responsible use.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's not just about the tech.
It's about the people.
The people using it, yeah.
And that brings up another question for me.
Okay.
Training and support.
Oh, yeah, that's key.
How are people actually being prepared to use this effectively?
That's a good question, because if they aren't, adequately trained,
Yeah.
it could lead to all sorts of problems.
Right. We talked about inaccuracies,
Yeah.
biases. But, I mean, there's also this bigger issue
Yeah.
of job displacement.
Yeah, that's a big one.
This fear of AI taking over jobs.
People are worried about it.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
I mean, even if Copilot isn't directly replacing jobs,
Yeah,
it's definitely changing the nature of work.
absolutely.
Yeah, those tasks that were once done by humans,
Mm-hmm.
now they might be done by AI.
That's right.
So people need to adapt,
They do, yeah.
learn new skills.
It's not just about mitigating the risks.
Right.
It's about recognizing those changes
And preparing for them.
and preparing for them. Exactly.
Wow, this is really highlighting, I think, the complexity of all this.
It is. It's not just a tech challenge.
It's a human one.
It is.
Changing mindsets,
Yeah.
workflows,
Absolutely.
organizational structures.
The whole landscape could change.
And it's so fascinating to see how different governments are approaching this.
It is. We're focusing on Canada here,
Yeah.
but so many other countries are experimenting with AI in their own ways.
And I think it's important to remember
Yeah,
that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
I agree.
What works for Canada
Right?
might not work for another country,
Absolutely.
and vice versa.
Each country has its own unique context.
Its own priorities
Yeah, its own cultural norms.
that are going to shape how AI is adopted.
I think that's a really good point.
So while we're talking about Canada specifically, this is bringing up some pretty universal questions
Big question.
about the role of AI
In government, in society.
in society, yeah, as a whole.
It's a global conversation,
It is.
and it's just getting started.
It's only going to get bigger
It is.
and more important.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the key takeaways here
Yeah,
is that this conversation needs to involve everyone,
everyone, not just the tech people.
not just the policymakers.
We need to hear from citizens
Yeah.
ethicists,
Social scientists,
artists, everyone.
anyone who's going to be impacted by this.
Because the future of AI isn't something that's going to be decided for us.
Right.
It's something that we're all creating together.
It's about making sure that everyone has a voice.
I love that.
Yeah, democratizing the conversation.
Democratizing it. That's exactly what we need.
Because this has the potential to be so transformative.
It does.
Both good and bad.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's up to all of us
All of us.
to make sure that it's used to benefit humanity as a whole.
I completely agree.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up this part of the deep dive.
Okay.
But as always, we're left with more questions than answers.
There are always more questions.
And that's okay. I think that's a good thing.
It is.
It means that this is a topic that we should be engaging with.
Absolutely.
It's complex.
It is.
Nuanced.
So much to think about.
It's constantly evolving.
It is.
So, to our listener, we leave you with this challenge.
Okay.
Don't just be a passive observer in this AI revolution.
Yeah.
Engage with it. Question it.
Shape it.
Shape it. Yeah.
Make your voice heard.
Make your voice heard, because the future of AI is not predetermined.
That's right.
It's a future that we're all creating together.
It's exciting.
It is. It's a little scary.
A little bit.
But definitely exciting.
Definitely exciting.
So, as always, keep exploring,
Mm-hmm.
keep questioning,
Keep learning.
and until next time.
Yeah. See you then.
You know, it's kind of wild to think that we're at this point already.
Yeah.
Governments actively trying to figure out AI in their work.
I know, right? And what's crazy is that it's not,
Like some far-off thing.
no, it's not some super advanced, future AI.
Yeah, it's Microsoft Copilot,
Exactly.
which a lot of people already use.
In their personal lives. Yeah.
Yes. So it's not some abstract concept anymore.
It's here.
Yeah.
It's happening now.
And it's making us ask these big questions about what it means to work in government in the age of AI.
Absolutely, yeah.
It makes me think back to the beginning of our deep dive. When we highlighted that date on that Canadian policy, February 1st, 2025.
It is so recent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It just reminds us of how fast things are changing.
it does.
What's cutting edge today?
Right.
Commonplace tomorrow.
Yeah, and that pace of change.
It's fascinating.
It is.
But also a little daunting.
A little bit, yeah.
Because how do you make policies? How do you make guidelines
Right.
for something that's constantly changing?
Yeah. How do you keep up? It's a huge challenge
It is.
for the Canadian government.
Yeah.
Really any government.
Yeah. Globally.
Because the fact is, AI is not going away.
No.
If anything, it's going to become more powerful, more integrated.
Yeah. So it's not a question of if governments will use it.
Right.
It's how
It is, yeah.
how do they maximize the benefits, minimize the risks?
The million-dollar questions.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really knows for sure yet.
But I think what's encouraging is that at least we're seeing this global conversation start.
We are.
This isn't just a Canada thing.
No, not at all.
It's everywhere.
It really is a global issue.
And there's not going to be, like we said, a one-size-fits-all solution.
Nope, definitely not.
What works here might not work there.
Yeah, different contexts, different priorities,
Different cultures.
different values, yeah.
And that brings us back to something we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
this idea of needing to have more people involved.
Oh, yeah, we've got to go beyond
Yeah.
the tech experts, the policymakers.
Right. We need the citizens.
Yeah, the ethicists,
The social scientists.
the artists, everybody.
Yeah, everyone needs to be a part of shaping this.
Exactly, because it's not something that's going to be decided in a vacuum.
Yeah, democratizing the conversation.
I love that, democratizing it.
Because this has the potential to be so transformative.
It does.
Like, fundamentally.
Yeah, for good or for bad.
And it's up to all of us to make sure it's used to benefit humanity.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
So, listener, as we wrap up,
Okay.
we're going to leave you with a challenge.
All right, lay it on me.
Don't be a passive observer of this AI revolution.
Jump in.
Jump in. Yeah. Engage, question, shape it.
Make your voice heard.
Because the future of AI isn't set in stone.
No.
It's something we're all creating together.
We all have a role to play.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time.
See you then.